Right guys, we have news regarding which Macs we can expect at WWDC, so let's delve into it. So rumors regarding which Macs we can expect to see at WW have been all over the place because if you remember a few months back, there were a lot of consistent reports regarding the Mac Pro releasing at this event and also new base M3 Macs. However, more recently there have been reports suggesting M3's been pushed back and also the Mac Pro might not release right now, so for the most part, we've only been sure the 15-inch MacBook Air could release with of course the M2 chip. And well, I am excited for this form factor, but ultimately this is going to be a pretty boring release with it using the exact same M2 chip we've had for months. And well, that's where Mark Gurman comes in because he now hints at the fact we could get more exciting Mac releases. He says that Apple's going to start accepting trade-ins for the Mac Studio, the 13-inch M2 MacBook Air, and of course, the Base Pro on the same day as WWDC. So that could suggest we're going to see new Macs that replace these models. And by the way, would like to remind you guys, like this video and subscribe for more content like this. It would be appreciated. Now, we have heard about new versions of these Macs. I believe 9to5Mac told us the M3 13-inch MacBook Air Pro are in the works, and Mark Gurman himself did say the Mac Studio should still release, possibly not with an Ultra variant, but at least with the M2 Macs. And so I would be very happy with these Macs releasing at WWDC. However, I do want to say Mark Gurman specifically does not say these Macs are going to get updated at WW. He just says read into that as you will, so yes, as per usual, Gurman's being pretty vague about this, and so it's not definite we're seeing new machines. And yes, I know Apple usually offers trade-ins for products that have just been replaced, but that's not always the case. You can, for example, trade in the iPad mini 6, this has been the case for a few months now, and of course, there is no iPad mini 7 yet, and so Apple accepting trade-ins for these Macs might not definitely mean we're going to see new versions of these Macs. And you could argue that because the 15-inch MacBook Air is going to release pretty soon, M2 13-inch MacBook consumers could possibly want to trade in their machines and get that bigger display, so yes, I'm going to temper my expectations. However, I do want to mention out of these Macs mentioned, the Mac Studio getting a simple refresh could make sense because we already have the M2 Macs, and the only reason M3's been pushed back is because there's a low yield rate for 3nm chips, and so yeah, it's pretty easy for Apple to release a Mac Studio with the M2 Macs. You could also argue that Apple's accepting trade-ins for the Mac Studio because they plan to release the Mac Pro at WWDC, which yes, could be the case, but considering rumors have been pretty quiet regarding the Mac Pro's release, I would not be surprised if that's been pushed back, and Apple just gives us a simple spec refresh for the Mac Studio. Also want to mention that the event would be pretty long if Apple gives us a ton of new Macs, the software releases, and the headset demos. So yes, I think Apple's going to sacrifice the hardware releases they do at WW and give us more simple refreshes and allocate more time for the headset, which is the big announcement, and of course the new software updates. Those are my thoughts, guys, but anyways, let's delve into your comments. So Dan says, my wife just had a 2017 13-inch MacBook Pro replaced with a 13-inch MacBook Air M2. It's a pretty great machine. I don't think most will care about the M3. And yes, I can see why Apple's releasing the 15-inch with the M2 SoC because they probably have tons of these, since sales for M2 Macs have not been fantastic, but also the yield rate for M3 chips are way too low right now, so of course, if they relied on that, these Macs would have major supply issues, and as you say, most regular consumers are going to be fine with them too, especially for those who have not experienced Apple Silicon yet. And so yes, from a business standpoint, it makes sense why they're releasing the 15-inch with the base M2 chip, but of course, as a techie, I do want more, and M3 should be a big upgrade. So Richard says, they really need to increase the base storage, otherwise they're force-feeding marine life with e-waste. It might be better to get a 16-inch first gen rather than this, as the prices have come down nicely. So I do think calling it e-waste is quite extreme, but yes, for most consumers they do need more base storage, and Apple should give us 512 gigs as standards and also throw in 16 gigs of RAM. But of course, as everyone knows, Apple makes a ton of money from people upgrading the RAM and storage, and so yes, I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon, but hopefully we see this happen one day. And regarding the 16-inch M1 Pro being the better buy, I do agree with this, but I do think eventually when the 15-inch gets the M3 upgrade, that's going to be worth it. and so that's currently my dream machine, and I'm hoping it does release pretty soon. So Nathan Reedy says, this machine and how it's priced, and if there's going to be any surprises, such as additional ports, will show in my opinion if Apple's smart and consumers are dumb or vice versa. I mean, yes, if someone's buying a base spec 15-inch M2 MacBook Air $1,500 to $1,600, then yes, there is a decent saving between the 15-inch and the least expensive 14-inch MacBook Pro. However, if someone's looking to keep the MacBook Air for 3 to 5 years, I don't think 8 gigs of RAM and 256 gigs of storage is going to cut it, and they're going to have to get 16 gigs of RAM and 512 gigs of storage, which adds $400 to the cost and would put this machine at either $1,900 or $2,000. And at that point, you might as well go for the 14-inch, and I realize some may not do this. So this is a very good point, and this actually might be Apple's plan, because they did a very similar thing with the M2 13-inch. Yes, the base model made sense and was pretty good value, but of course, if you were looking to upgrade the RAM or storage, you were very close in price to the 14-inch, which offers much better specs. And so I'm sure Apple's managed to upsell many consumers by having this pricing tier where the regular models are very close in price to the Pro models. And so the same thing is going to happen here, because yes, you're right, if you consider upgrading the RAM or storage, you're going to be very close in price to the Pros, and that's probably what Apple wants. However, I do want to say there is one big advantage the 15-inch could have compared to its Pro counterparts, and that's battery life. Even with the M2 chip, this could be getting 24 hours of battery life, which is a lot better than the 14-inch, and so even if this is close in price, there is going to be a market that wants this, and as you mentioned, most consumers are getting the base version, which of course is a lot cheaper than the Pros. And $1 Snake also makes a very good point. They say the 14-inch and 16-inch 2021 models have dropped in price, and so it makes the 15-inch a pretty bad deal, which yes, is again a very valid point. But honestly, you would be surprised at how many consumers want a completely new machine, because I have told many online to consider refurbished Macs and used Macs in general, but some are fixated in having a brand new machine. And since you can't find the 2021 models brand new from many places, I still think there's going to be consumers who go for the 15-inch even when it's bad value. And personally, I do prefer the thinner design the Air has, but I'll be definitely waiting for the M3 version of the 15-inch. Anyways, tell me your thoughts regarding these reports in the comments. Anyways, thank you for watching, guys. Make sure to like and subscribe for the latest Apple news and rumors. And on that note, I'll see you guys in the next one.